So that was, that was a great success. And also, you participated in something that is a part of Moms Demand Action and Every Town called Demand a Seat, which is a program that's been developed to help people who are interested in running for office and to train grassroots volunteers and gun violence survivors to step up their advocacy and also run for office and help on campaigns to elect other gun sense candidates. As part of this, you earned a Demand a Seat Gun Sense Distinction Award and the endorsement of the group, which is which is wonderful, and that you were actually invited back several times to address new Demand a Seat potential candidates. And also that you served on the state election as the state elections lead for the most recent municipal cycle of elections, and that you did have to step down when you stepped up to run for office. But that's another important position. We're very happy to have you here, and very excited about your strong record for gun violence prevention. And when we ask candidates to come and speak to us, we kind of want to have it well-rounded. So I ask candidates to tell us a little bit about themselves, why they're running for office, what their main issues are. And then I do ask for a little information focusing specifically on your views on gun violence prevention that, kind of lets the audience know too, kind of that how we kind of outlined, and you can, stray from that if you want, but it's the basic plan. I'll just be quiet now and let you talk. Thank you.
Okay. Well, no, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak to all of you. But first of all, I just want to give a general thanks for my being part of Moms Demand Action and for sensible gun sense legislation. And Cathy and Sherry and Jim, and I don't think I see anybody else that we were together. Cathy and Sherry, we were together when we went to lobby for the Protect Illinois Communities Act. And then Jim and I ended up being together when we were at the rally in front of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, where they were hearing the case from the national. Am I getting it right? The National Association of Gun Rights, where they filed an injunction where they wanted to repeal the law. So my path has crossed with many people in good ways, and because obviously we're not going to fight this alone, we have to fight it together in groups. So I met Jim McGrath actually back in 2017, which was, I believe, the time that Barrington Area Moms was founded, and Jim has kept it going. Barrington area and Lake Zurich was a very strong group until COVID, and then like everything, all volunteers just kind of never came back after COVID, or they're trickling in still. It's sad, but we are strong in numbers. And also thanks to Shannon Watts for giving this platform to us over the last 10 years to fight gun violence. My first encounter with gun violence, it was not direct, but I was a law clerk at the time in the late 80s. And it was the shoot when Lori Dan went shooting children in Wilmette. And it's still to this day gets down to my bones that I hear about another shooting, and especially when it's children. It's the gun rights people. I don't understand their sense, except that it's just money, money, money. The same people who filed the injunction at the appellate court, they lost, right? The National Association of Gun Rights. Well, they filed again with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court denied their request for an injunction just recently. like less than, I think, 6 months ago. And there they are again, filing today or yesterday, along with another organization, the Illinois Rifle Association. They're filing again with the Supreme Court. So obviously they're well funded to be able to continue to go to court to do this. And the language that was used by the president of the National Association of Guns, this time I think his language was very inflammatory and very political, of course. He said, it's time for the Supreme Court to step in, enforce its own precedents, and smack down the activist judges who think they're above the Supreme Court and the Constitution. To me, that just it's like, so you think you have the Supreme Court in your pocket? To me, it just gives that minority group of gun owners this strength to this fire to continue to be mean and angry and violent. And this on the heels of what's going on with Trump, right? So this is why I'm involved with gun violence prevention, because all the way back from when I was in law school. I have a son who lives in Japan, Mario, he's my youngest. You don't hear very much about gun violence because guns are not allowed on the streets in Japan. They have to be locked up. And if they're not, you get arrested and you get charged. And it's a very safe country. In fact, when we were in Japan, we went the wrong direction to go to the train, and there was a wallet on a bench. When we came back, after realizing we went the wrong direction, that wallet was still on the bench because nobody takes what's not theirs in Japan, including lives. But when I hear in New York another shooting, I immediately, the hairs on my back go up because my oldest son lives in New York. So I get concerned about where was it, who was it, where, like the one that just happened on the elevated train in Brooklyn. When I heard that it happened during rush hour, I was like, okay, where is this in relationship to my son? But it's that's why I'm involved, because people shouldn't die needlessly for the selfish reasons of owning firearms, and especially owning assault weapons, which are weapons of war that don't belong on our streets in civilian everyday life. I went backwards a little bit. So I did run for the Senate last cycle against the minority leader at the time. Nobody gave me a chance, but we got out there and knocked on doors. I had a lot of wonderful volunteers that helped me, including the moms group. We just came in that short, 385 votes out of almost 90,000 votes. And we knew the night of the election that we were not going to know which way. And until the very last day. And then, of course, I was diplomatic and I called my opponent and congratulated him, reminding him, though, that it was 385 votes, because I wanted that to hang over him when he would vote or not vote for gun legislation. And he was not a very happy person to see me when we were down there lobbying for PICA. He did not like that. But that's good, because he's still my senator and he still needs to respect his constituents' wishes. So with that, I did serve with Moms Demand Action. I had asked Sherry, is there something I could do on Moms Demand Action? She goes, well, we have a few positions, and the state elections lead seemed right up my alley, given given politics and helping candidates and all that. So I did that for the municipal elections. And then I was honored to be able to go see Mayor Brandon Johnson get inaugurated. He like President Biden came in, and then like the world kind of fell in his hands. It fell apart. Like, who knew we were going to have all the immigration issues and, more a budget that wasn't clearly transparent, that wasn't where it was supposed to be when he came in. And so I feel for him, because it's a lot. My husband's like, who would want to be the mayor of Chicago? Well, somebody's got to be the mayor, and we don't want just anybody. So we want somebody who actually cares and has compassion for people, which is why I am running for the Illinois House, because for the same reason I ran for the Senate is the reason I'm running for the Illinois House. As I mentioned earlier, the district is geographically large, big money to little money, big houses to little houses. And to me, it doesn't matter whether you have a big house or a little house. To me, what matters is that I hear your voice, that I listen to you and acknowledge what you're telling me and what your needs are, and take that down to Springfield, and then bring back what I hear and see in Springfield back to the constituents of my district. For me, it's not for me to say, oh, no, no, that can't happen. For me, it's like, oh, well, let me take that under consideration. Let me share that with some of my peers. Let me take that to leadership and see where it goes. And I'll get back to you, because it's not my decision, which is what I understand is how my opponent operates. People will go to him, mayors will go to him and say, oh, we'd like to have this looked at or this. And he'll say, no, can't spend any money. Well, that's not his choice. He's not the one in charge of the budget. So you make your ask, and that's all you can do. It's like you make your ask, and if they say no, then you report that back and say, constituent, I tried. These are the parameters, or why this isn't going to happen right now, X, Y, and Z. It's got to be a transparent, open communications relationship, and one where, as I mentioned, that you have compassion, but also that you have an understanding of what's happening in the community. And I can tell you that walking in the community, it's a diverse community. We have not only economic levels, but we have all ethnicities, all races. And my opponent, who says his campaign slogan is Back to the Future, has a similar ring to Make America Great Again. So, and if you go to his Facebook page and listen to his last um, floor speech about the immigrants, and it's like the immigrants, the migrants, the illegals, I don't know what you want to call them, but whatever. It just shows the lack of respect of the people who took 6 months of their lives, risking their lives and that of their children, to come to escape from environmental disasters, political disasters, to save their own lives. They've lost their jobs because of the economies, like in Venezuela, the oil industry has died because of the corruption. And so professionals who are looking to come and do lawyering up here. So these aren't criminals, and people fail to realize that they can't enter the country unless they've gotten the paperwork done. And once the court says, okay, you can stay as an asylum seeker here in the United States, that's the way they come in. And so the rhetoric again incites this danger and these terrible things that are happening at the border, where women and children are dying and drowning in Rio Grande. To think that the way they get welcomed is having guns, rifles pointed at them at the border, the south border. It's terrible. How about I take some questions instead of me just rambling?
Sounds good. Joyce.
Always have questions. Two things. One is I was listening to Chris Hayes last night. A great episode, actually, talking about how much immigrants contribute to the economy. It was something like $8 billion. I mean, it was like astronomical, and that's one of the reasons U.S. is recovering well from after COVID. Just wondering, so what are the top issues that you're hearing from constituents in your district, Maria, when you talk to them?
Choice, reproductive health care, and bodily autonomy. Number one. No, in fact, today, as I was wrapping up canvassing, an older gentleman was like, yep, you have my vote. I have daughters. They will not suffer. I will not let them suffer. Gun violence and the environment. The concern with the environment is, having enough EV chargers, which thankfully now with the Infrastructure Act that Biden passed, and Illinois is getting quite a bit of money from that to enhance our roads and include installing chargers. We're on a move with that. And gun violence, people do ask me, well, what exactly more can we do? And I was like, well, there's a lot we can do. For example, we still have to push Karina's bill, which I saw Representative Hirschauer about 2 weeks ago at the Equality Illinois gala, and I was asking her about it. And she said right now it's in the Senate's hands. The bill has to come through the Senate in order for it to move. So that's where it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know where it is now, but domestic violence, and I know some of us have chatted about it, like, we don't have a gun in the house because our tempers could be a little spicy. My husband and I say the same thing. It's like, in fact, to be honest with you, the only kind of gun I've ever held is a water gun, because they don't look inviting to hold. And if my opponent watches this and he says, this is why she shouldn't be a rep, because she doesn't even hold a gun. Okay, hold me to it. Hold me to it that I'm woke, that I've never held a gun. But yeah, so there's a lot to do. The continue, Cam Buckner's bills with the Homicide Data Transparency Act being, letting people know that whether it's a really closed case or it's a case that's continued to be unsolved. And then the other one, where actually I had the opportunity when we were lobbying to meet Valerie Burgess, her along with other folks, including Cam Buckner, have there are unsolved murder cases, cold cases, and similar to when that special counsel called Biden that he didn't know the date of his son's death. Everybody remembers the date of their son's death or the date of death of a loved one. But in this whole case situation, it's like, who did it? Why did they do it? What happened? And that is such a heavy burden on their shoulders and in their hearts. And it behooves me why this has not moved faster, other than police departments saying they don't have budgets to provide for the liaison. I think that's a pretty weak excuse. So those are the three main issues I hear at the door. Not so much, the tax issue I get from time to time, but that's usually people who are living in those big houses. I say to them in return, well, you do like your schools, don't you? And until schools and taxes are tied together at the hip, that's the way it's going to be. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I just merged the 25th in Mannheim, so forgive me if I swear. I have two questions, actually. Someone, I'm not sure it was because I'm driving, someone mentioned about going down to the State House. I've done that for a representative who, thank goodness, is not my representative anymore. And we got her out. And is there a group that's going down at any time? Is there a way to get connected to any group that's going down at any time? If there is any group that's doing that, I just posted my information. I'm probably one of the few here that's not up in that area where you are. I'm down in Dooner's Groove. And my second question is, what is the area that you're running for? What's the major towns? I don't know where you're at.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to call you by your screen name, Johnny Sunshine. I like that. So you can sign up with Moms Demand Action. They have an app, but does Sherry or Patty, do you know what the text number is to sign up for Moms Demand Action alerts?
I have signed up for them, but I don't know of any local group that's going down to any place like the State House.
Well,
they have national.
Yeah, well, Moms doesn't go down like every week or all the time. That they
Right.
go down when there's a special issue, like when we had Pika. So, but usually if you load the app on your phone and sign up and say, hey, I want alerts, then you'll know what's going on. And maybe Downers Grove doesn't have a local. I don't know, but
No, we don't.
You could probably connect them to the next closest group. And then your second question was my area. So I'm
that you're running for.
Lake Cook, McHenry, and Kane. So I go, I have 5 precincts of Libertyville, and then I go into Mundelein. I have a good portion of Mundelein, and I go then west into Wakanda, Lakemore, Volo, Island Lake.
You do have a large area with lots of sizes of houses. I used to teach driving lessons, and I've been to every single one of those places you just mentioned, so I know where you mean. Thanks for letting me know.
Sure.
I posted my real information. I use Johnny Sunshine so the lunatics can't get a hold of me.
Okay. Well, and just so you know, I do go all the way down. I go all the way to Algonquin and then all the way down to I-90. So South Barrington and Hoffman Estates as well. So thank you for asking. Anyone else?
So I've got a couple of comments. Johnny, the Moms Demand Action is, I think we're planning a lobby day in late April or early May. It's not
Great.
finalized yet, but I follow that.
I've got their app, but I haven't gotten anything from them. That's why I'm asking. Thank you for that.
It hasn't been finalized yet. That's why you haven't gotten anything. But I just want to comment too that Maria tends to be one of the regulars at our school board meetings, which is appreciated. And I've heard her opponent speak a couple of times. Once at the school board meeting, he said he is there to keep the politics out of the school board, but what he really is trying to do is bring in the right-wing politics. So you got to be careful with what these people say. The other thing I've heard him say is I was at a Republican gathering. I've already told Maria this, but he commented that he just had his first grandson or grandchild, and he said it's too bad that they weren't born in Mexico, because then they could come across the Rio Grande and get given, and they would be given everything. So this is what he thinks about migrants. That's his thinking about his grandchild. I'm not going to endorse Maria.
And he's probably already put a handgun in his grandson's hand. There you go.
Yeah, you could go to
It's not a water gun.
Yeah, you could go to the Barrington Area Chamber of Commerce and you could find the video there of their legislative event. That's what Jim is referring to. Yeah, that's the kind of guy.
Thank you both.
Any other questions?
Okay, Maria, if you, I'm convinced that the problem with gun control, gun safety control, is determining how do we get the guns out of the hands of the people who shouldn't have them, without infringing on the rights of the people that should have them, or that don't necessarily cause a problem. Do you see it? Do you see that as an approach to solving the problem, gun control problem?
Well, that is the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, the people who filed again with the Supreme Court to put an injunction or to call the Protect Illinois Communities Act that to say that it's infringes on the Second Amendment and it's unconstitutional. Well, in the meantime, responsible gun owners have registered their assault rifles or their assault weapons and gun accessories. And just to give you some numbers, because not all gun owners are irresponsible, but let's just put the numbers here. From October 2023 to the end of the year of 2023, 29,357 had registered. The number is overwhelming. 68,992 guns and 42,830 gun accessories. That comes out to about 2.4 guns per person and 1.5 gun accessories per person. Then this January, another 6,262 people filed assault weapons affidavits, totaling 11,802 firearms and 7,459 regulated gun accessories. There's a lot of guns out there. I will say thank you to those who said, hey, I'm going to register my guns. There's a thing in the military, they call it TSA, training, safety, and accountability. I will say, at least for these people who went ahead and registered their guns, that they are at least being hopefully safe and locking them up, but certainly accountable in terms of registering them. But again, I don't see the need for assault weapons on the streets whatsoever. But it's not an unknown problem that we have a problem with our surrounding states. It's an issue of interstate commerce that has to be dealt with Congress. I don't know, somebody put it in the chat earlier about we cannot hold gun manufacturers responsible, like we could hold toy manufacturers responsible for death because Congress passed a law to protect them from any type of lawsuit like that. And so now there's an attempt to try to sue. There's an attempt right now that Mexico is trying to sue gun manufacturers for the deaths that they've caused in Mexico, because that same law doesn't protect gun manufacturers in Mexico. And there's another lawsuit going on, I believe, where they're trying to use the consumer fraud as well. But these are long fights. There's not an easy answer, Paul. If you have one, share it with us.
I sort of do, but what I'll do is email it to you. I've tried to email. Well, I can't think of his name. He's a representative from. He's a member representative that is responsible for introducing gun legislation into the state. He hasn't responded to me, but we have a program that we feel it's similar to the Swiss program for gun control. And Swiss love their guns. I mean, they have a history of loving their guns, and they turn it around through the years through training, registering, and also background checks were key with them. But I'd like to send it to you and see what you think.
Well, we have background checks. We have red flag laws. We have background checks. We have a lot of. Illinois is one of the more progressive states in gun violence prevention. But again, it's the leak that comes in from Indiana. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read about that one gun store that was at the border of Indiana, and they finally closed because of getting constantly reviewed. And part of the problem too is it's not just the gun shops and the gun dealers and the name is escaping me, but it's not just them. It's also the NRA has had such a hold on Congress for approving the director for, somebody help me with the name of the agency.
The ATF.
ATF. Thank you. Thank you. So they don't want a strong ATF leader. They want somebody who's weak, so that then that way ATF overall isn't funded, and then there's not enough people to come and do the research and the investigations on these gun shops. And so, things fall through the cracks.
They've captured the institution.
Pardon?
They've captured it. They've captured, ATF.
Yeah. Right. So there's a lot that Congress needs to do, but we have to make sure we reelect Biden, and we have to make sure we have both houses in Congress on our side.
I could come up with another meaning of the letter F, but I couldn't say it in polite conversation.
Go ahead. We're not polite.
It's being recorded.
We are polite, so
Okay,
yeah,
I
we're
take
keeping
that back.
all of our language
Nice
family
statement.
friendly, folks. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat that some people have responded to in the chat, but I don't know that it's gotten back to Maria. A question that I'll read from Robert Glass. The current Supreme Court seems very hostile to gun control. So how do we continue to advance gun control without them just striking it down?
Well, I think we do what we're doing now, and just like we were doing after the Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade, and Illinois took and ran with it to protect women's rights. I think we're doing the same thing right now with gun violence protection, to the best of our capability. You also, while we're Democrats, and you see this on the federal level, but you also see it here in Illinois, that while we're Democrats, you have Democrats from the South who are used to having guns because they hunt. That's their way of being. And then you have Democrats in the North that, the last thing I want in my house is a gun. And this is the beauty of Speaker Welch, where he has these working groups so that the differing minds could come together and talk together at the table and find a solution rather than blow up like in Congress, where you've got the super progressive Democrats, and then you got the moderate Democrats. So, it's it's a step-by-step process. If we could do it overnight, it would have been done. Because there's a lot of people already have broken glass ceilings, so to speak, to continue to enhance our gun violence prevention laws.
Right. Well, those
We fight for President Biden, who has got a task force and is actually wants to make a difference. And we, like Maria says, we've got to overturn the House so that they're actually productive. But let's, we keep fighting. We're making progress. It's not as fast as we like, but progress is progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and keep in mind that
go ahead.
we're still the people who want good still have the majority voice. We just don't use it in a hostile and loud, obnoxious way. And so, we just put our heads down and do the work. And those who want to be loud and insulting and well then, it's at the end of the night, it's their conscience, and if they can sleep at night, well, good for them. And if they can't, that's not my problem. I want to make sure I sleep at night, that I've done the best I can to take care of my people.
That's a great way to look at it. Thank you. Are there more questions? I know we have
Johnny's got his hand up.
Go ahead.
There was something briefly alluded to. I'm from Indiana. I live in Illinois. I've been in Illinois since 1983, except for 2 years. I've seen the changes. Illinois goes one direction, Indiana goes the other direction. What I'm wondering is, I saw something that was a clickbait, but I'm pretty sure it was accurate. Illinois is like number 3 in gun law enactment, that it's the strongest, like number 3 strongest, and Indiana is like number 47, like 3 from the bottom. Is there anyone that has that actual facts and stuff? Or I'm trying to get things in my hometown changed. That's what I'm trying to do. When I go home, there's Dixie and there's what's that one? The Confederate flag flying from flagpoles, not from cars, from flagpoles.
Wow.
And I'm trying to get that changed. Dan Quayle's hometown. If you know where Dan Quayle's from, or if you don't, you can look it up. So that's why I'm getting so involved, because I'm trying to change things there. Things are a lot better here.
I think that the study that you're referring to was a Moms Demand Action study that came out just a few weeks ago that ranked Illinois as 3rd in the country in terms of strength of gun laws. And then they also mentioned that the fact that that homicide rates are higher than you would expect for a state with such good gun laws has to do with the fact that we have a border with Indiana, not Missouri, and and states that have weak gun laws. But I believe it was a Moms Demand Action study, and it just came out in the last month, I would say, and it was fascinating to go through and look at the rankings of the various states. So you might be able to Google it.
I go to come back to load of guns and get rid of them within a half hour. I'm going to. That's how easy it is in my hometown.
Right.
Yeah, I see there's an Everytown research site that compares states. Illinois is number 3 and Indiana is number 30. I'll see if I can drop that in the chat.
Yeah.
Well,
Indiana's looking better all the time.
Hey, Natalie, I see Kaya's got her hand up there.
Yes, the potent and terrible combination of what goes on in Chicago with kids getting involved in gun crimes, getting the guns from Indiana, getting the guns from second party sellers, off the street selling, also is a result of the explosive and destructive policy whereby the 54 schools were closed. And the Chicago teachers union warned this would happen.
Well, does this help explain why? Everybody tells me my microphone does not work very well.
Oh,
and besides that, I'm also listening to another session on gun control. So I've got to shut that down before I can.
Could I finish what I was saying? But what I just want to say, the violence in Chicago is a result of these two things. A parent just wrote, and somebody who had been a student had just written a really good op-ed in the Chicago Sun-Times about the correlation, because all of these people had lost their communities when the schools were closed. So they found their families on the street. And like where I live, I don't know if it's happening in Barrington, but I live in the northern suburbs here, not far from the highway, and people are coming up on the highway with guns and as young as 14 years old and are performing gang rituals or whatever with car stealing and carjacking. And it's just, it's a lethal mix. So we're talking about people who have lost their community. And it's very sad.
Yeah.
You can add Dooner's Groove to the list too.
That's very interesting perspective, I think, about the loss of the role that loss of communities can play, and that's set into put into effect by school closings.
Natalie, it looked like Harry had a question. Harry Shug. He raised his hand, but maybe not.
Is he?
So I just wanted to add something. Illinois has a lot of good gun laws. One of the problems is when it gets to the budget, we don't fund the agencies that are supposed to enforce those laws. So that's an issue that we have to figure out how to get around. So funding for these agencies, a lot of times we'll pass laws and we'll say, okay, the local law enforcement needs to enforce it. But then they come back and say, we don't have resources to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's people will say, we've got, why does Illinois have all that gun problem? You have some of the strongest gun laws. Trouble is we don't fund the agencies that have to enforce them.
And sometimes the funding is even there, but the people who could use it don't have the connections, the awareness of how to push through the bureaucracy to write the grants or whatever they need to do to get the money. I mean, I hear fairly frequently about, millions of dollars sitting there not getting used, and groups that, could desperately use them, but don't have what they need to have to connect. So even when the money's available, sometimes it's not getting distributed, or very, very slowly.
Well, and the other thing too is sometimes the laws pass and they don't have rules. Like it took quite a bit of time, and they're still finessing the rules with the Illinois State Police for the registering of the assault weapons ban. And one of the challenges with Karina's bill is, so you want a search warrant at the same time that you have the name is escaping me again. I'm sorry because I'm so tired. Where the order of protection, right? But the police want to know, well, what are the rules? Because there's a lot of police. When I did a few police ride-alongs in the last cycle, when they enter a domestic dispute, they have their assault rifles because those domestic disputes can turn really ugly. So that's one of the issues with Karina's bill, that what are the rules going to be? And the Illinois State Police is kind of pushing back until they have some firm and agreeable terms. So it's not always that, it's not that easy.
Right.
So, but I'm gonna excuse myself here. I'm just, if that's okay. I have an early morning meeting in the city, and I got to get to bed.
Okay. Well, before you leave, I certainly want to thank you. And I was in contact with your campaign manager, Mia, today, and she mentioned that you have, in addition to your gun violence prevention, of course, you have made a strong issue of where reproductive rights are concerned, and you have an event scheduled now.
Yes.
Maybe she hasn't told you about this, but she gave me the information late this afternoon. Second.
Go ahead.
I have to tell you also, but you have an event scheduled. It's on Zoom. dealing with reproductive rights.
Right. We have a few town halls scheduled. Our first town hall is coming up on February 22nd. That one is on reproductive rights. And our guest speaker is going to be our guest speaker is him and I will be talking. Orrin Jacobson, he's the co-founder and co-executive director of Men for Choice. So we have that on February 22nd. We will, Jim and Natalie and people who already get my email, you'll get that email and let you know. Would love to have you there. And then in March, we have a town hall on gun violence prevention. So, and off the top of my head, I don't remember. I had it written down on a card and I've lost my card. So, but we'll let you know about that one too. So
thank you.
It's let me just double check because I think it's before the primary.
Good.
Oh, it's March 12th is
Right.
the gun safety town hall. Yes, Tuesday the 12th. So we'd love to see you all there. And we'll be having more town halls, but those are the first two that we're going to have before the primary.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please go to my website, Maria for 52.com. Sorry, that's the email. mariafor52.com. That's my website. Sign up either for my Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, social media handles. That way you could also be apprised of what's going on in our campaign. And feel free to sign up to volunteer. We could always use phone bankers, door knockers, canvassers, drivers. That's pretty much it, right? Phone bankers, canvassers, door drivers, and happy people who want to help me win.